Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am excited to talk about Season 4, Episode 9 of Succession, Church and State. Lot going on, and we've only got one episode of Succession left. I've got, I think, 5 or maybe 6 different thoughts, and then I've got one question that I've got on the whole series that I would love to hear what you think about in the comment section below. But let's just jump right into it right now about what we saw in the last episode. First thing that comes to mind is that Roman was never up for this. He was absolutely never up to be CEO. The whole show, he's been some kind of like quasi-adolescent where he's making crude sexual jokes. He's unable to think like an adult. He can't plan ahead for the future. We saw at times, especially in season 1, Kendall was gearing up to be CEO and he was ready to take on that mantle. And then I think it was towards the end of season 1 or seasons 2 and 3, we thought Shiv was gearing up to be CEO and she was trying to step up her game to take on those new responsibilities. Those were legitimate opportunities for those two, but I don't think that, at least in this show, there's ever any kind of realistic chance for Roman to be CEO. Do you remember a few episodes ago when he fired Jerry on a whim because he was having a bad mood, he was having a bad day, with no thinking, no planning ahead about how that was going to impact him in the future? It was incidents like that where it should have been obvious to all of us that his capabilities of leading this company were rather dim. But oddly enough, in terms of Roman not being able to be the CEO in this episode, he actually shows the most humanity at a funeral, obviously. And that humanity actually lessens his chances of becoming CEO. Because in these people's minds, crying at your father's funeral is a sign of weakness. But again, my first point here is that Roman never had a legit chance to be CEO in the entire show in my mind. The second thing that I want to point out is that it looks like it's becoming some kind of showdown between Shiv and Kendall, which is, what we saw in the episode. It's also what was teased out in that teaser that they put out. I like those teasers because they really don't give much, if anything, away. So I do really like that. It makes sense that it's setting these two up. Last week I said that I thought Shiv would end up on top, but after seeing this episode, I'm actually thinking that there's going to be some kind of potential twist where none of the kids take over, and instead the deal goes through. Matsson, gets the deal to go through, but he appoints a different American CEO. And I am saying that because I'm a little more skeptical and pessimistic about Shiv's chances for a few reasons. One of which is my third point, which is Shiv's pregnancy has obviously already hurt her, and I think it's going to hurt her in this next episode. Not that it should, but it will. Think about the world that these people are living in. Roman gets picked on by Kendall. He gets made fun of by Mencken, all because he cried at his father's funeral. A pretty normal human reaction becomes the butt of a joke. Well, a woman getting pregnant is pretty normal, but you see Shiv trying to downplay this in conversations with Matsson, trying to explain how she's not going to be away that long, the baby won't even see her, and she'll be back in action in 2 days, just like that. She implicitly believes that her being pregnant is a bad sign for her chances, and I would have to think that Matsson agrees with that. Also, at least in this episode, and maybe I should have seen it before, but Shiv seems a little obtuse. She doesn't seem as clear-eyed and as thoughtful as I thought she should be, which leads to my fourth point, which is, why are the kids so surprised, and especially Shiv, why are they so surprised that their dad was a monster? Why are they so surprised that their dad was a bad guy? Why does Shiv even have to ask Frank and Carl if Logan was a good guy? Obviously, it speaks to the kind of cluelessness as well as the blind spots that we have with our own family. But that lack of awareness from Shiv seems pretty egregious to me. Family or not, you should be able to see how Logan treated his own family, his employees, and basically everyone that he came in contact with. Yet in another light, showing how unskilled these kids are with the world around them is kind of a point of the show. Roman, in the last episode, had no concern, when they were deciding the election, he had no concern for the ramifications of what he was doing. He just wanted what he wanted. And so he just went through with it, again, without concern for anyone else. Shiv is seemingly clueless about her father when that should be perfectly clear at this point in her life. The only person who seems somewhat self-aware, at least to me, is Kendall. So let's discuss him in my fifth point, which is Kendall is doing everything he can, as well as he can, to go on the attack. He got Hugo to be his dog, woof woof, and Hugo's gonna tell the media that the Gojo deal is on shaky ground. He also got Colin, Logan's former bodyguard, to come work for him, or at least it's implied that Colin's gonna come work for Kendall. And in his speech defending his father at the funeral, showcasing his skills as a public speaker, which he's always been good at, I think that speech was as good as you could have hoped for, as good of a defense of Logan as you could have hoped for. Yet I do have to ask the question, do we really think Kendall can pull off all of this off? Of all of his siblings, he might have the most skill, but he's really in a terrible position. And so why is that? Well, obviously, as he said in the episode, he has no leverage with Mencken. Mencken thinks that Roman is a crybaby who cannot stand the heat. He can't handle the kitchen. The election is out of the media's hands. So win or lose for Mencken, it won't be because of ATN. It's going to be because of the courts. So what does Kendall have to offer Mencken at this point? How can Kendall exert his will on this situation? Now, and Kendall obviously pointed this out to Roman, when they were on the couch later in the episode. I want you to go back to season 1, though. In the first few episodes, remember when Kendall was trying to buy out that other company I can't remember the guy's name, but it was in the first few episodes, Kendall's trying to buy out the other company, and he was getting railroaded by that other CEO because Kendall did not know what he was doing and he had no leverage. Do you remember that? Maybe the same thing is about to happen, where he's going to go into this giant deal that is beyond his skills, beyond his abilities, and he's going to get railroaded in what's to come. Which leads me to my sixth point, which is Mencken. Even though he will not be CEO, obviously, what if he comes out on the top of this show at the very end? What if he becomes president, Shiv and Kendall, and obviously Roman? I think Roman's just gone. Forget Roman becoming CEO. Mencken becomes president. Shiv and Kendall get nothing out of this future deal. The deal goes through. Matsson appoints someone else as the American CEO. Tom, Shiv, Greg, Kendall have to face whatever fallout there is for the election and ATN disaster that happened. So I don't know if they would get served. I don't know if they would be disgraced. I don't know what that would look like, but I think that's a realistic possibility because I don't think you can discount the social and political points that the creator, Jesse Armstrong, is trying to get across. So I think you have to expect to see some kind of fallout from election night, even though we're only a couple days removed from election night. And I think that fallout's going to be on the kids because I don't think they were smart enough to cover their tracks, and I think I think that's where things might be heading. Also, and this has been pointed out by others who review the show, but did you notice how Mencken basically said nothing to anyone? Everyone comes up and approaches him, and they start blabbing. They start talking as much as possible, but he does not tip his hand. He just listens. He just takes it all in. He knows what everyone else is up to, but no one knows what he is up to, which puts him in the strongest position where he can acquire as much information as possible while giving up very, very little. That's going to help my argument that, Mencken is going to come out the rosiest out of everyone, which, again, going back to, whatever point we think Jesse Armstrong's trying to make, I think that's a realistic scenario where a politician who is portrayed as a really terrible person gets away with it and other people have to face the consequences of those actions. Lastly, I do want to point out again that Shiv is at the mercy of Matsson, and honestly, he might just be playing Shiv, pretending that he's going to appoint her as American CEO, even though he has no intention of doing that, and then once this deal goes through, he appoints someone else and he gets rid of Shiv. I don't think Shiv is thinking through the next level steps of what could happen with Matsson and how he can really screw her over. Whereas with Kendall knows he's in a tough position with Mencken and he's thinking through the future possibilities. I'm just not sure Shiv is. And so I'm a little more pessimistic on Shiv's chances than I was just a few days ago when I made my last video. I want to make one last point before I get to my last question, which is I see some people, joking and some maybe even serious that Greg's going to be CEO. at the very end of it. I think that would legitimately be hilarious. I would be all for it. I don't think that's going to happen. I've also seen people post that they think Tom might be CEO because, Tom I think Tom was working when the funeral was occurring, and I think Matsson might have been impressed with that, or at least, maybe that's what the show creators are trying to get across to us. I just don't think Greg or Tom is going to be the end of the CEO, but I would love to see Greg. I think that would be very funny. And my last point is actually a question that I've got for you guys, which is, what is the point of Succession? What are the writers trying to get across? I would love to hear what you think on this. And we're obviously going to discuss this after the finale when it's all done. But is this show about political decay? Is it about greed? Is it about the pursuit of money? Is it about how people can't overcome their upbringing? As we heard Ewing, I'm saying that name wrong, Ewing, describe how Logan was abused as a child, and then Logan actually carries that abuse and that horrible treatment down to his own children, and his children actually treat other people really terribly, and so it's just this long cycle that continues, unfortunately. Is that the point of the show? Is the American media and its failures it's failures in political society? Is that the point of the show? I would love to hear what you think. Obviously, I think Jesse Armstrong is going to make his final point in this next episode. I'm really excited to hear and see that and kind of examine what point he's trying to get across, because I think that's probably the most interesting thing, much more interesting than who's going to be CEO, although I would love to see Greg as CEO. But my guess right now, put it on the record, neither of the siblings becomes CEO at the very end. Someone new is appointed the American CEO. I think the deal's going to go through, and I think we're going to see the kids with a lot of regret and egg on their face in the season finale. I do plan to have more Succession videos as well as more Better Call Saul videos coming to you very shortly. So if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.